for this webinar. So this one is more of what's new on Maps 4, or has been new for a while now. We did a webinar previously, so I'm not going to go into too much details, focusing on the Maps lifecycle tool in general. Can always reference one of the previous webinars to get more details of it. But just as a quick introduction, or where Maps, the engineering lifecycle tool, fits into is it's just that tool that you need in your toolbox. I mean, there's nothing else I can actually say that. And when I talk about a toolbox, I'm talking about the toolbox that you have for your engineering project. So if you're doing an automation engineering project, you definitely need Maps as part of your inside your toolbox. So this tool is basically the central point of configuration for your engineering project. That's what it is in a nutshell. And it basically integrates and operates on software packages like GX Works3, GX Works2, Android, and the Maps SCADA, as well as ePlan Electric P8. And this will basically make sure that you cover all your cycles of your engineering process. As just a quick example, someone makes a change, a wiring change in the field on the PLC itself, rewires the input from input 1 to input 2, for example, and all you need to do is go to Maps, and Maps update the change in there, and Maps will obviously feed that through to ePlan, GX Works3, as well as your SCADA, your Maps SCADA package. So that's just a quick introduction, and I think the two images that I've put down here is the best to explain where Maps fit in to the life cycle, where does it sit, and how it actually is a tool that you definitely need as part of your engineering project. All right, so that was just as a quick introduction to the whole Maps product or tool and where it fits into. As I said, details and how it works and all of that can be found in previous webinars. But this one, I just want to focus on what we've added for Maps 4. And although there was a few small additions, the two big ones that I actually want to focus on is the integration of GX Works3 and then our new version 3 templates. So when we look at the GX Works3, when we look at the GX Works3 support that we've integrated into Maps, it opens up a whole new opportunity for us using the IQR and the IQF PLCs. And you know, Maps is considered mostly regarding your engineering saving time when you do a project. That benefit you get works mostly for big projects, which the IQR is useful for. But I would actually like to also focus on a small scenario where you use the IQF rather. It's definitely an industry that can be exploited, and Maps can definitely be used for it, and it could definitely still benefit you on your saving, costing, and all of that. So from version 4, we've got the GX Works3 support, which obviously makes use of the open interface supplied by Mitsubishi, which you will see as part of the install. As you can see in my image at the bottom left, there's a GX Works3 that needs to be installed, and also GX Works3 Open IF. So Maps makes use of that open interface that also needs to be installed. And that allows us to then, as you can see on the map side, be able to now integrate with not just the QNL, but also the IQR and the IQF series PLCs. Right, so my suggestion is to let's obviously do a project using IQF, for example, to just showcase this. And before I start doing a project, just some little bit of background regarding using the IQF. So the IQF is a very powerful little PLC that supports up to 64,000 steps. And it can actually be expanded to 128,000 if required. And also IQF supports version 2 compilation, which reduces the amount of steps that your project consumes. So it allows you to actually fit in quite a big project, a biggish type of project, into that small PLC, for example. And on the right-hand side of my image, you'll see there's your device and label area. That's very important because there's limitations to that. So I played around with these ranges, and I sort of came to a conclusion that the numbers that you see in this image for the standard area and the high-speed area and those 12Ks and 10K and 50 and 2Ks is sort of the optimal number that I could get to ensure that I can get the biggest possible project, Maps project into the PLC. All right. So what we've done also to try and just make it easier for the customer out there to see if the project will fit into IQF, for example, is we created a little Excel tool, and when you install Maps, you will see that it gets installed into the documentation folder. And I've got one that I've populated here already, so I am just quickly going to open it up for you, just so you can see, but that is in that document. If you browse there, here you will see in our install folder, we've got a lot of documentation that we supply for you. And here we've got a template for calculation of IQF or IQR or Q/L series. So you can always make use of any of these documentation to basically determine the size of your project. So obviously, as I said, the second feature of what's new in Maps 4 that I would like to touch on is our new templates. I'll go into detail with them now, but I took all of our new version 3 templates and I've put them into this sheet to just show as an example. And I've basically worked on a 20% spare. And this basically tells me a lot of detail of how many digital inputs I would need, how many digital outputs I would need, analog ins, analog outs, how many scan points would I require from the map SCADA perspective, as well as from the PLC perspective, my PLC steps, my labels, and my latch labels that I would require. Those numbers are obviously important when it comes to defining your amount of labels assigned to your project. Right, so that's just a quick introduction to using the IQF, for example, now with Maps. And I'll do a little project to just showcase it now. But before I do, I just want to touch on the version 3 templates that we've implemented. And here's just a list of them. Now, most of these, not all of them, but most of these were part of version 1 and version 2 templates as well. For example, analog I/O, digital, analog input using PID. But there's new ones like analog accumulator, digital accumulator. The single and double actuator was also part of version 1 and 2 templates. Same with the CC link. Control panel is new, for example. Temperature analog is new, which is a Mitsubishi temperature card specific. And a power analog, same thing. And analog rate of change. So those are new ones. The E10 Modbus DOL is also a new block. And most of these blocks basically came to life due to projects specifically that we did in South Africa. So we've got a few projects on the go with maps specifically, and there is these version 3 templates came about from that. And also the look and feel compared to version 1 and version 2 templates is a little bit different. It's more focused on the version 3 templates are more focused on the grayscale, what we now term the HMI new way of developing, where everything is gray and dull and operator only sees color when it's really required to act or do something, which is the best practices of developing HMI. And if you ever need any more information on that front, I can point you to a book that explains it quite well. So with that in mind, before I start just with the little video that I've created, with my project that I've created, just to distinguish between version 1, version 2, and version 3 templates. So version 1 was templates initially developed, but we didn't use floating points, for example. So analog value, we just shows an integer value. Then we developed version 2, where we modified some of those templates and allowed for floating point values. And then, as I said, the version 3 templates that came in with Maps 4 is basically making use of more grayscale layout and based on some of the projects that we implement in South Africa specifically. Right, so what I'm going to do now is I've got a video where I did the whole project. I recorded it as a video instead of doing it live, just because creating the project for GX Works or even for the Maps agent server will take about 10 minutes or so, and we don't want to wait for that. So I made the video and I just cut some of those out to speed up the total process of the video. So let me quickly open up the video for you. Wait a sec. Okay, so, and then I'll just talk you through it. Okay, all right. Let me just start this from the beginning. So first thing, when I go into Maps, is I can add a project, obviously, first principles. I'm not showcasing that now. I'm just importing an import sheet with all the version 3 templates on them already. After this, I'll show you the sheet accordingly. And basically, when I finish now, so basically what's happening now is the import sheet has got all the equipment on it and the whole layout of the S88 structure of the project. And Maps is now basically building this project, and obviously the graphic form. Okay, so there's typically your graphic form that's been created, and there you can already see in design mode how your various objects are looking for version 3 templates. A very grayscale, color only when really required. There I'm showing you I've got the IQF series selected. So now I'm going to build a PLC project that will build a GX Works3 project for me. That is a IQF selected PLC to use. So this process takes normally about 2 or 3 minutes. So I've just cutted it out a bit, and we will see what happens now. So on the left-hand side, Maps is now basically brought in all those version 3 templates into the project. And when I build it, it's all good. I've already configured my ranges according to that screen that I've got shown earlier. And now I'm just building my project to make sure it's all good. It's happy. And yeah, if I just quickly run through some of those templates. So as you can see, there's a digital input for version 3, function block that's already developed for you to just use as is. Each object also have its own DUT that's attached to it. And again, there you can see all the variables that's in play for a digital input, for example. And then if you look at the actual POU, you will find there also program where that actual digital input, for example, is referenced and the DUT is attached to it as inputs and outputs. So that's sort of the standard Maps functionality that comes in there. Just making sure that I can connect to my PLC. And access my IQF so I can download my PLC project. Yes, I'm now downloading my project. There you can obviously see GX Works3 shows you your allocation for your variables as well, your program memory, your steps. Okay. Okay, there we go. So the next step is obviously to create the Maps agent server part. So that's where we go and we build all our tags, scan them, alarm them, log them. Again, this process will also take about 10 minutes in the case of this project. So I'll just cut out a few sections there so to make it quicker. Now that the PLC part is created and the SCADA part is created, I can of course run it here as a test. Okay, but I'll rather just show you in the operator. So let me open my operator. I'm going to start my device communications to the PLC, and then we can run through these new version 3 templates that is currently running on a FX5 PLC. And as you can see, it's very much a grayscale look and feel. Everything's gray and dull. All our templates got the same format. We've got a faceplate, and each faceplate in itself has got a few child faceplates where you can show a trend, for example. With your trend page, we also have a alarm page and the events page, and we also have a settings page which allows you to modify some settings. Obviously each Maps template's got different settings to be changed. So also part of the new version 3 templates is a lot of set points has been exposed, more so than on the version 1 and the version 2 templates, for example. Okay, so that's the sort of look and feel. You can now go to any one of the other objects, and you will see it's got its own look and feel, but the same, well, own information, but the same sort of structure, same sort of look and feel. And obviously its own settings and all that. So I'm just running through a few of those screens for you and see what type of settings you can play with. So it's nice that you have all these settings on the scaler and on the faceplate available. Most of these, well, when using the Maps version 3 templates, there is a security model also already developed as part of them. So with the documentation folder that is installed with Maps, you will see there is one that is called Maps Template Security Setup. I will show you that in a moment. And if you configure your security, your environment security the same way, then you are ensured that those settings that you see on that faceplate can only be changed by certain people in certain security groups. Yeah, so I'm just running through a few of these to see what they all have, what the availabilities are, what you can set. So this analog input one, for example, you can choose a different channel input module, because this one references a normal Mitsubishi analog input card. So you've got an 8 channel, you've got a 16 channel, so you can change those settings. There's a normal analog input. Here you can modify your alarm ranges, and you can even enable them. If you click on the setup, there you can disable. You can decide how you want your alarming to go via latching, if it must fault or not fault. You can disable or enable the alarming. So that's quite nice from a function block perspective to do all that alarming and scaling and configuration all inside the block. And Maps basically utilizes the information for you to interact with. All right, so that's another one there, which is the output module. So that references output module. You can choose your type and a PID. So here's your PID loops. Then here you can. What's quite nice about the version 3 PID loops is you can actually use the actual faceplate to assign your loop number, where when you use version 1 and version 2 PID loops, you still have to go into the function block manually yourself and assign the loop number. Right, so that was just a quick show and tell on the template side. So for those that hasn't seen the import sheet I've just used for this project, I'll just quickly show you. So I've basically used all my version 3 templates in them, and I've just imported that instead of doing it from first principles. Right, that's done. So last thing that I just want to say about the templates is, for each template that we've got a nice document that you can reference. So if it is installed as part of the product, if you go to that folder, for example, I think I've got it already open now. There we go. you will see we've got, I'll take that one for example, which is a version, there's the PID template version 3, for example. So you can open up that document in PDF and it will explain to you what it does, how it looks, and what everything means regarding to the SCADA and the PLC site. Okay. And lastly, as I said, when using the version 3 templates, we need to configure our security, which you can do also. Come on, where are you? Where are you looking? Let me just go there. You know why that link is not working correctly. Documentation. All right. So there is a security. Let me just find it quickly. Security. Not that one. That's the one for version 1 and 2 templates. There we go. Maps template security setup. So yeah, you can go through this document to ensure your environment is configured correct and accordingly to use these version 3 templates. Sorry, there we go. Yeah. So it explains to you how to configure it all up and being able to then use these version 3 templates. Obviously, yeah, if you go to this documentation folder, there's a lot of other documents also that you can use. There's the maps import sheet that I just used, a blank one, so you can populate it accordingly. And what's new document? There's a maps for training manual, for example. There's a maps for quick start guide. If you want to create your own maps templates, there's a document based on that. So in a nutshell, that's the what's new in maps primarily that I wanted to focus on. So from my side, that's all. So if there's any question or anything, then please shout. And thank you very much for being with and listening to me.